Hi, everybody. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about an issue. Last week, we had an earthquake in Jamaica on the 16th of August, actually, 18 kilometers or thereabout from Kingston, the capital. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because I don't think much was said about the issue after that. And the issue itself came from the geologists. And I want to talk about that today. I think it's important for persons to hear. Now, there's an article that appeared in the Jamaica Gleaner, and it's entitled Seismic Shift, right? And it spoke about geologists. I think his name is Professor Simon Mitchell. It says geologist sounds alarm as 5.3 earthquake moves onto Wagwater Fault. Fears stress may be building up on a fault system. Now, this occurred on August the 16th. So the article was from the day when it occurred, okay? So the 5.3 magnitude earthquake that jolted Jamaica has raised the antenna of one of the country's foremost geologists, Professor Simon Mitchell, who says the latest tremor moved onto the Wagwater Fault. The Wagwater Fault, which is 1.5 to 2.5 kilometers wide, together with four other faults, controls the tectonics of the Blue Mountain blocks. Now, this is very, very, very important, right? So, I want to take you to this article now, and then I'll get back to that. So, we look at that after. Let's get to the tectonics, right? Local tectonics. This is from the Huey Moon in Jamaica. It says Jamaica itself is traversed by several geological faults that feature quaternary left lateral offsets. In eastern Jamaica, the Plantain Garden Fault runs into the Yalas, the Blue Mountain BM and Wagwater and Silver Hill Faults, which together control the tectonics of the Blue Mountain blocks, right? So there's the YPG, there is the BM, and there's the WW, and there's the Silver Hill Fault. So there's about four of them there, right? In Western Jamaica, the topography is influenced by the South Coast Spur 3 and multiple Newmarket NMB faults that exhibit large downthrows to the south and west, respectively. Earthquakes occurring across the country today predominantly exhibit strike slip faulting, which mirrors the movements along the Oriente fracture zone. And this graph actually shows you earthquakes during 1997 to 2007 are seismic action that's taking place across the country. So you could see a lot. But if you look at the graph, if you look at the drawing properly, you'll notice a lot occurred where those four faults are, where the Blue Mountain areas are. If you look at it, you see WWB right here on the screen there, and you see BM there in great red. And this cluster of seismic activity is very, very great in that area where the Blue Mountains are located. So I just wanted to bring you up to speed on that before we get back to the one that we were talking about, and you'll understand now why the professor is very concerned about what happened. Now he says, I'm not particularly happy about that because that's a big structure in Jamaica and it probably hasn't moved for maybe hundreds of thousands of years, Mitchell told the Gleaner. Mitchell said Friday's earthquake shows a developing pattern over the last 2 years of them moving progressively across Jamaica in a westerly direction, and this worries him. Remember, I showed you the graph or the image of seismicity in Jamaica, and remember what it showed. Let me get back to that graph one more time, or that image, and you'll see exactly what he's talking about, why he's worried. If you look there on the western side, he says everything is moving, right? Everything is moving. So we do have a problem. We do have a problem there in Jamaica. If you look at it. Now we head back to the article. Let's go back to the article and hear what he had to say. It's a very, very interesting article on why the people of Jamaica should be concerned. He says Friday's earthquake shows a developing pattern over the last 2 years of them moving progressively across Jamaica in a westerly direction, and this worries him. So they started in St. Thomas and then went to Portland. And although that's a bit north, they're still moving westward and are now in St. Andrew, which suggests that the stress is being transferred from east to west, said Mitchell, a professor of sedimentary geology at the University of the West Indies, Mona. On Friday, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management said the 5.3 earthquake struck in the northeast section of Jamaica at 8:01 a.m. ODPEM said the earthquake unit at the UWI reported that the epicenter of the tremor was located 6 kilometers northeast of Golden Springs, St. Andrew, with a focal depth of 27 kilometers and intensity being felt across the island. So he is very concerned, the geologist, he's very concerned that in particular, he's not happy because that's a big structure in Jamaica and it's probably hasn't moved for hundreds of thousands of years, he said, what he told the Gleaner. And he says the Wagwater Fault, which is about 1.5 to 2.5 kilometer wide, together with four other faults control the tectonics of the Blue Mountain blocks. Mitchell said Friday's earthquake shows a developing pattern over the last 2 years of them moving progressively across Jamaica in a westerly direction. And this worries him. So they started in St. Thomas, then they went to Portland, although that's a bit north, they're still moving westward, and now in St. Andrew, which suggests that the stress is being transferred from the east to the west. And that is of major concern. So those of you living in Jamaica, I think this is something that you are to pay particular attention to and understand what your professor is saying here. So they're moving from the east. More than likely, they're heading to the west, right? In a westerly direction. You see a lot of them congregating right there. But let's get back to what Professor Mitchell was talking about. And we continue the article. It says additional assessments. Mitchell said of major concern is the South Coast Fault, which runs from southern St. Elizabeth to St. Thomas. He said stress may be building up on this fault system. So in St. Elizabeth to St. Thomas, he said stress may be building up on this fault system. That will not be a good situation because with earthquakes, you do not have everything in front of you to work out, the professor said. Further, he said additional assessments are being made to confirm the 27-kilometer depth. He said if the earthquake in fact ran that depth, it may mean some form of adjustment took place at the base of Jamaica's crust. That's another important thing for you to know. He said they're actually looking into now the depth at which the earthquake occurred. And he said if it in fact took place at the depth of 27 kilometers, it may mean some form of adjustment took place at the base of Jamaica's crust. That is really, really serious. He said Jamaica's depth is approximately 25 to 30 kilometers. And they're saying that this earthquake took place at 27 kilometers. So he said if it did, that means there's some form of adjustment that took place at the base of Jamaica's crust. Yesterday, earthquake is the second major tremor felt in months after a 5.6 magnitude one rattled Jamaica in October last year, shuttering schools, businesses, and leaving rattled citizens scampering for safety. That quake, which lasted approximately 30 seconds, had its epicenter at 10 kilometers south of Buff Bay in Portland and was felt in eastern Jamaica and several other parishes. So there's a lot to take away from this article, which the Jamaicans should be really concerned about, right? First of all, he said that the Professor Mitchell says that the latest tremor moved onto the Wagwater Fault, and the Wagwater Fault, which is 1.5 to 2.5 kilometer wide, together with four other faults, control the tectonics of the Blue Mountain blocks. That is the first thing that you have to be concerned about. The reason why he's not happy and concerned about it is because that's a big structure in Jamaica. And he said it probably has not moved or for maybe hundreds of thousands of years. He said that there's also a developing pattern over the last 2 years of the earthquakes moving progressively across Jamaica in a westerly direction, and this worries him. So it started in St. Thomas, went to Portland. He said that's a bit north. They're still moving westward and are now in St. Andrew, which suggests that the stress is being transferred from east to west. All right? From east to west. And this is worrying to him. All right? And then additional concerns, he says basically, the major concern is the South Coast Fault, which runs from southern St. Elizabeth to St. Thomas. And he said stress may be building up on this fault system. That would not be a good situation, he said, because with earthquakes, you don't have anything in front of you to work out. Further, he said additional assessments are being made to confirm the 27-kilometer depth. He said if the earthquake, in fact, run that deep, it may mean some form of adjustment took place at the base of Jamaica's crust. That is another important thing to remember. Jamaica is approximately 25 to 30 kilometers deep. And so they're looking into that. So, Jamaicans, pay attention. Sometimes we don't because there are things that take up our time, but this is, I think, is a very, very important article. It's in the Jamaica Gleaner. You should read it. And it says a lot. It says a lot. And if you were to go back to what the local tectonics that is to the local tectonics, you see this image. Look at that. A lot of activity taking place from between 1997 to 2007 there. Of course, it's going to be more than that, right? The fault line legend, offshore faults. Well, I'm not going to go into that, but the major land faults, and you could see the Wagwater fault is in that, is the Blue Mountain, the Yalas, South Coast, the Spur Tree, the Santa Cruz, Unveil, I hope I got that correct, Maryland, but those are the major land faults in Jamaica. And Jamaica had a bad history in terms of earthquakes. You remember Port Royal. So we want you to pay attention to what is happening. It's very, very significant what the professor said. And I think that those of you in Jamaica really should pay some attention to that. Read the article. It's in the Jamaica Gleaner. You should really have a go at it. All right. So I just wanted to come and to bring some information concerning what the professor had to say. I think it's very, very important, and he made a lot of sense. So thanks for joining. Share the video, subscribe to the channel, and take it easy.